Hey everyone, it's Charlene, and today I'm going to share with you 3 different ways to use your layering stamps. This is the brand new Craft Your Life project kit called Cozy Spaces from Altenew, and I'm really excited about this kit because it's different from a lot of other kits that are out there on the market. Altenew has always done a really fantastic job with their kits, but what they're doing now is they are creating coordinating independent products. So you can use them individually or together and get so many different looks from your kit. First part of the kit here, we have this beautiful layering stamp set, which creates a bunch of different kinds of plants and planters. And as always, you have beautiful packaging with samples as well as step-by-step instructions for any of the layering that needs to happen with your stamp set. Also included with the kit is the Cozy Spaces layering die set. It creates these 2 really cool mid-century mod chairs, a lamp, as well as a coffee table. Love this retro vibe they have going on. And of course, with the packaging, again, you have the awesome layering guide. Next is this beautiful builder stencil, which has all of these fun different images that you can combine or use separately to add texture. And you've got a rainbow, you've got arches, circles, as well as some nice foliage and some really abstract organic shapes as well in this last stencil, which these are all going to be really fun to work with. Last but not least, there is this embossing folder, which has this really kind of unique texture to it. I don't have an embossing folder like this currently, so I'm excited to use this and see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and get started on our 3 different cards. Since our rainbow has all of these tiny little pieces, I want to make sure to keep them in place. So I'm going to start out right away by using some repositionable spray adhesive. I'll just do a little spritz over that. Once it's dry, I'll make sure it's nice and tacky on the back side before I put it down, and that's going to hold it in place and just make the whole process a lot easier. Now, I'm not sure how big I'm going to make my final card at this point, so I'm going to put some masking tape down here, and then I'm going to start with some Dusk fresh dye ink. I love this color. It is beautiful. If you do it really lightly, you get this awesome light blue. If you go in with a more heavy hand, you get a gorgeous color as well. I'm going to bring it along the bottom of the rainbow. Yes, I know, blue and green for a rainbow, but it's going to look so cool. And then I'm going to bring some down from the top center as well. So I've created 2 little empty spots there on the side that I can come in here with Frayed leaf fresh dye ink and blend into the blue. It's going to create this nice kind of blue to teal to green rainbow. Very cool color vibe. I love how this turned out. Now I can show you the first way to use your layering stamps, and that is to use them as silhouette stamps. So I've found this beautiful plant stamp here, and this is the base layer, and I'm just using it with black pigment ink. I'm not doing anything fancy, but it creates a completely different look than if I had used the different colors to layer up the stamp. For the planter, I'm using my Stamp Perfect conditioner you saw there. It's so helpful on these larger stamps to make sure you get really good coverage and a nice stamping. And I'm stamping out the planter. Easy peasy. Now we have that cool black silhouette style stamp over our rainbow. I want to die cut this chair right here, and what's nice about this die set is that they include the dies to cut the mirror of the chair. So for this chair facing this direction, you're going to use the dies that have a little arrow. So I have those right here. You can see there's a little arrow. And if I wanted to cut out the opposite facing chair, I'd use the pieces that have this little snowman looking shape. And then for the bucket chair, you have both sides as well. If you want the one that faces to the right, you'd use the dies with the keyhole, and then the opposite facing chair, you would use the dies that have the triangle shape. So really, really smart for Altenew to include that. I'm going to use some brown paper here from my stash, as well as some Morning Frost cardstock, which is this really pretty warm gray. I'm going to do the pillows in this color. I think it's going to look really nice with those blues and greens that we've done for our rainbow. So I'll go ahead and cut everything out. I want to show you here on the die cuts, there are also embossed numbers. It's a little hard to see, but you can see right here is the number 1. So I've laid everything out as it's shown to me on the layering guide in order. It makes it much easier to layer everything together like this. And I'm going to start by adding glue to this top portion right here. And then this is going to have the number 2, the pillow, over the top. So I'll take the pillow here and I'm going to line this up so that the 2 arrow cutouts overlap each other and you can see right through it. For this next piece, I'm going to go ahead and line it up again so that those arrows overlap. I'm just checking to see where the glue is going to go. So I'll add a little bit of glue here at the bottom of the pillow, line up those arrows so that they overlap perfectly, and then I can come in and add just a little bit of glue to that back side there where the chair leg is going to attach so that it can be secured on there and hold that down. Next, I'll add some glue right along the front here, and this tiny little rectangle piece is going to come on here and secure over the top right there. It shows you on the layering guide that this is where that should go. And then to the back of this seat cushion, I'll add some glue. This is going to layer right over the top of the existing cushion, bottom cushion die cut. And the reason you have that extra layer is 1, it adds beautiful dimension, but 2, then it hides our little arrow that was cut out. I'll add some glue to the base of this pillow here, and this is just going to set right in there towards the edge of the chair, and then I can add glue to the back of our other chair side. I'm not going to add any glue to the chair leg that sticks out because that's not going to layer over anything. And then I can just line this up along the left hand side of the cushion there and have it overlap that bottom leg of the chair, and look how cool our chair looks. I just love it. I want some of these in my living room. I have a good idea here of where I want the chair to go, so I'm going to nestle in this sentiment right here that says sending. This is a great way to tie your sentiments into your card, is kind of nestle them into the scene somewhere. Stamping this out directly onto the card with some black pigment ink, and separately I'm going to stamp out this sub-sentiment that says warm wishes and cool vibes. That's pretty cool, right? I'll stamp this out here in some black pigment ink as well, and then off camera I can just trim it out so that it is a nice rectangle. Added some foam tape to the back of our chair, and then I also added a little foam tape to the sub-sentiment, and now all I need to do is add some glue to the back of the completed panel and adhere it to an A2 sized card base. So here's our finished first card. Super cool. Love the vibes off of this card. For my second card, I'm going to use some of these arches here that are on this builder stencil. I'll start here with some limestone fresh dye ink. I'll do a very light all over. I don't want it to be too dark, but I also want to make sure that it shows up. So once I have a decent amount on there, I can remove my stencil, and then I'm going to flip the whole stencil upside down. So don't forget, you can always flip your stencils, and I'm going to create a cool arch going in the opposite direction that overlaps that limestone a little bit. I'm using frayed leaf here, same kind of thing. I don't want to go too dark. I just want to make sure to get some light color so that it shows up on our background. Once I'm finished with that, you'll see it's fairly light, but it looks really nice. Lastly, I'll bring in the circle, and I'm going to have that circle overlap both of the arches because the overlap really creates some visual interest. For this, I'm bringing in a very, very light hand of the Dusk. Remember, I talked about how pretty this looks when you just use a light hand. So I'm just getting a tiny bit of ink and doing a couple of little swoops on there, and that's going to be plenty. It's going to match the lightness of that gray and that green, and everything is going to work really well together. Now you can see with the stencil off, it's just this fun little interesting design for the background. I've got that same A1 stamp here, and I'm going to show you a different way to use your layering stamps now. So I'm going to stamp this out in some more of that frayed leaf ink. So I'll flip this over and get my stamp nice and conditioned, and then make sure to get a nice even layer of that frayed leaf. Now, depending on how dark you want your colors, you can stamp once, twice, 3 times, right? That's the beauty of using a stamp positioner like the Stamp Wheel 2.0 here. But the difference being here now, I'm going to make sure to get all this ink really dry. So I have my heat tool here, and I'm going to dry this all really well because we are going to heat emboss some of the layers of this layering stamp. So I'll add some anti-static powder tool on here, and then I'll bring in layer A2 to add over the top. Once I have that lined up, I'll go ahead and pick it up and I'll stamp this out with the slightly darker Forest Glades ink. So make sure again to get some nice coverage after I've conditioned my stamp. We'll ink this up, and then we can flip over the plate and press down. And you'll see this layer creates the nice veining in those leaves. Then we'll bring in A3. I am moving kind of quickly because I want to ensure that my ink stays nice and wet by the time I get to the heat embossing portion of all of this. So I'm using a slightly darker Evergreen. If you don't want to move as fast as me, you also could stamp first with some type of embossing ink and then stamp with your color, or vice versa, and that's going to keep it wet for longer. So before this all dries, I'm going to get some clear embossing powder and put it all over those leaves. What this is going to do is it's going to create not only texture on our card, so those areas that don't have the veining, they are going to be raised, and it's also going to create some really beautiful shine on our card, and it's going to give us some really lifelike result here. You see here, it looks almost like those leaves are real, like you could just reach out and touch them. Lastly, I bring in stamp A4, which is going to go over the stem, and I'm going to stamp this in some paper bag. So I'll ink this up. Now keep in mind some of those areas that have been embossed, I don't want any of the ink to smear as it lands on there from this stamp. So what I'll do is once I get it stamped is I will bring in a paper towel and I'll just lightly dab the embossed areas, making sure to pick up any excess ink that might be sitting on top of that embossing powder. I'm going to use a different style of planter here for this card. So I'll go ahead and lift this up and I'm going to stamp this out in some Buttercream ink, which is a really nice pretty yellow, but it's actually going to work really well because I'm stamping over the limestone, and so it's going to pick up some of that gray and give us a little bit of a darker tone to our buttercream. I am going to stamp this one twice because I want that buttercream to be nice and solid, so I'll go ahead and flip this over and stamp a second time. That was stamp F1, and so now I'm going to use the detail layer, which is F2, and this is going to give us a fun little rope detail on this planter, right? So cool in mid-century mod, love it. And I'm going to stamp this here with some caramel toffee, or caramel toffee, however you would like to say it. So I'll flip this over, press and lift. Look at that cool little detail that creates. Next, I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and this I'm just going to take it directly across the plant. That's the nice thing about stamping with a nice solid black pigment ink is you can really stamp it pretty much over any color and you're still going to be able to see everything. I think it looks really nice there. That would look beautiful by itself, but I'm going to add this really cool mid-century mod chair. I'm using caramel toffee cardstock for this, which is an awesome color for the fall, but it also has a really cool mid-century mod vibe. So I'll go ahead and line up the second layer with the first layer so that our keyhole matches. Then I'll do the same thing here with the number 3 piece. I'll add some glue to the back, and this again is going to layer so that it matches right over our little keyhole here. Then this cushion is going to lay right over the top to hide our keyhole and also to add a little bit of dimension to our cushion. Then lastly, I'll add some glue to the back of the chair here, and this is going to layer right along the back edge. Now we have this cool looking bucket chair, and I did go ahead and create a second chair facing the opposite direction. I'm going to use just one of these for this card. I'll save the other for our next card. I added some foam tape to the back of the right facing chair, and I'll come in here and place this right next to our plant. Doesn't this look like a nice place to just sit down and read a book? I love how it creates this nice triangle with the sentiment and the plant and the chair. Add some glue here to the back, and then I'll glue this to an A2 sized card base. And here is our finished second card with that fun shine on the leaves, which makes them look so lifelike. For our third card, I'm going to do a more traditional kind of layering stamping. So I'll go in order here. I'm going to start with stamp C1, and you'll see there is also C2. I'm going to stamp these out in different colors as I layer them. I conditioned my stamp, and now I will ink that up with some frayed leaf and go ahead and flip this over and then lift that up. Next, I'll grab layer C2 and line it directly up over the first layer. I'll pick it up with my plate, and then I'm going to move to a slightly darker color. So you always want to start with light and work your way to dark, unless you're going to use your stamps as a silhouette style stamp. So I'll condition that and then add some Forest Glades, and this is going to stamp right over and create that beautiful second layer of green. And then I'll bring in layer C3 here, and this I'm going to ink up with Evergreen, and this is going to add some really nice shadows to our plant, as well as our nice stems in there that go through the leaves. Looks really good. For the planter, I'm using T1. That's the same planter we used on the first card, only this time instead of just stamping it out in black, I'm going to stamp it out in limestone to give it kind of a cement look to the planter. I am going to stamp it a second time to build up that color. And then for the second layer of the planter, which is D2, I'm going to use paper bag, and this is going to create the dirt in the base of our planter, which is kind of a cool little detail. If you wanted to avoid having the lines of your plant, you could use a little bit of masking tape or something to mask that area when you were stamping the plants, or you could move your planter down. I'm not terribly concerned about it because I think it looks fantastic how it is. For this card, I'll use the other chair we created earlier that faces towards the left, and I'm also going to put together the fun lamp that comes with the set. So I'll die cut all of the pieces out here. I've used some Morning Frost cardstock here, as well as some brown from my stash. I've got some brushed gold cardstock, and then some sea glass and some Lagoon. I'll start by adding some glue here to the top portion of the lamp where the keyhole is cut out from, and then I will use our piece of sea glass cardstock and layer it over the top so that those keyholes line up perfectly. And then I'll add some glue to the back of this Lagoon piece that I have, and this is going to layer over the top of the sea glass. And what's fun is you get this little peak of color from the other part of the lamp. I love that. Now I'm going to grab my reverse tweezers. I like to use those when I'm working with small pieces. I've got the small piece of Morning Frost here, and this is going to layer along the top of the slightly larger base piece and just lay it right over there. And then I can add just a tiny little bit of glue to the base of the lamp there and put my base platform piece right over the top of it. And what a cool chair. I love it. And I've got everything laid out where I want it on my card. You can see I'm even just working with my sentiment stamp there to make sure I get everything where it looks nice and balanced. For the lamp, I'm going to do this a little bit different to make my life easier. I'm going to take the release tape off of some foam tape I've added to the back of the top portion as well as the platform of the lamp. And I'm first going to figure out where I want the top portion to be. Then separately, I can take the release tape off of the base very carefully, making sure not to bend it, and put that exactly where I want it to be, rather than trying to work with those two pieces kind of flopping around. So then I just stamped out my sentiment with some black pigment ink to add a little bit of texture. I wanted to play with that embossing folder. I just used a piece of cardstock and then cut it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this small piece that I cut, and I'm going to glue it to the edge of the card that we've created. And this just creates some more fun visual interest. That's all. I'm just going to glue it right there along the edge. This is going to make it though so that my card is a little bit wider than an A2 size card. So all I need to do is come in and trim some off of the right hand side so I can make sure that it's still 4¼ inches wide. And then I will add glue to the back of the completed panel and layer that onto my A2 sized card base. So here is our finished third card that we created. Really cool, all using the same kit. I love that added shine from the lamp on there. Here's that first card we created with the cool silhouette style stamping, and then our second card with the fun embossing powder shine on those leaves. So you can see how different they all look, but because I used kind of the same colors for each card, they all coordinate. This would make a really cool gift set to give to someone. I wanted to mention as well that this video is part of a hop that is happening for Altenew. There's a fun giveaway going on, so definitely check out the description for all of the details. All right, I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.